Spring break wasn't very spring-like in North Carolina and elsewhere around the country.
And a 30-year-old cold case may have been solved.
These stories and more up next on Carolina News Today.
Carolina News Today is brought to you in part by the Wing Company of Pembroke, serving award-winning wings fresh, not frozen. Live entertainment weekly, 703 West 3rd Street in Pembroke. 10% discount for students and teachers every day. TheOriginalWingCo.com.
The winter weather is still hanging on here in North Carolina. Pembroke saw only a bit of icy rain on Monday, but the Triangle and Charlotte both got several hours of snowfall. On I-95, motorists were unprepared for road conditions. Drivers spun out and numerous accidents were reported, as you can see here.
Where were you headed?
I'm headed to Clayton.
Mark Futrell found himself in a bad situation within a matter of seconds while driving along I-95 from Clayton to Rocky Mount. It's his daily commute, but today was not routine.
Well, weather turned vicious really quickly, and everybody, all the traffic had slowed down, including myself, and there were people passing me.
He wanted to get into the right-hand lane to let faster drivers go by and started to make his move.
And I just lost control and slid off the road.
A couple of miles from this scene, an ambulance set off the side of I-95 after losing control. And again, on I-95, not far from the ambulance south of Rocky Mount, two more cars stranded. Futrell says this experience is certainly a lesson learned.
What goes through your mind at that point?
Please let me survive this. I was doing about 60 miles an hour when I slid off. I want to say 60, it was more like 55, 50. The road is 70-mile-an-hour road, and it did not look that bad.
Freeze warnings were in effect for 67 of the state's 100 counties. The bad weather prompted school closures and early dismissals. North Carolinians are ready to say goodbye to winter, but Governor Cooper said state authorities were in a constant state of preparation.
We're ready at the state level to treat and clear roads and to keep people safe. And one thing we have to remember, and they've been under constant barrage here the last few weeks, but high winds and coastal flooding are expected along the coast from Carteret County north. We're especially keeping a close eye on flooding along the Outer Banks and more overwash for North Carolina Highway 12.
Speaking of the coast, Governor Cooper continues to speak out against offshore drilling. He says it will threaten North Carolina's economy and environment. Cooper says the state can't afford the risks because offshore drilling would have little benefit for state residents. Coastal tourism brings in over $3 billion annually and supports more than 35,000 jobs. The Trump administration announced in January they'll issue new leases for offshore drilling off America's coast, with the possible exception of Florida. Cooper says he'll take legal action if necessary.
The 82nd Airborne will be conducting convoy training between Fort Bragg and Joint Base Charleston this week. So traffic on Interstates 95 and 26 may be impacted. Motorists are advised against entering the convoys between vehicles and to pass only in approved areas. The North and South Carolina Highway Patrols will escort the trucks along various portions of the route. The maneuvers will take place March 15th through March 18th.
An arrest was made in North Carolina over the weekend in a nearly 32-year-old murder case that had gone cold. 61-year-old Michael Hand was arrested in Troutman Friday in the October 1986 killing of a 15-year-old Massachusetts girl. Hand is expected to appear in court in North Carolina Monday. Massachusetts authorities have begun plans to bring the suspect there for prosecution. Massachusetts State Police Colonel Carrie Gilpin is the sister of the victim and called Hand's arrest much welcome news.
Neighbors of the murder suspect say he moved in about 10 years ago, and of course, they had no idea.
It's really shocking to all, I guess, our whole neighborhood.
A chilling discovery for people living in this tight-knit Troutman community.
You never know who you're looking at, or who you're standing beside.
Police arrested their next-door neighbor, 61-year-old Michael Hand, at his home on Friday. He's charged in the death of 15-year-old Tracy Gilpin. 32 years after she was murdered in Massachusetts, neighbors watched as police swarmed his home, having no idea the charges he was about to face.
It shocked me, and I wondered why they come and took him away like that.
Gilpin is from the Boston area, and she disappeared in 1986 at just 15 years old. It took several days before someone found her body in a park. Tonight, the victim's sister, a colonel with the Massachusetts State Police, released this statement saying, "The much welcome news of an arrest in the case leaves us cautiously optimistic that justice for Tracy is within reach." Still, neighbors in disbelief, a man they've known for years is the one charged in such a gruesome case.
An Asheville police officer faces felony charges, including felony assault by strangulation. He was caught on body camera beating a man he accused of jaywalking. Now, 17 people previously arrested by Officer Christopher Hickman will have their charges dismissed. Authorities say that's because the charges against Hickman mean he's no longer a credible witness for the prosecution in those cases. However, no suspected sex offenders or violent felons will have their charges dismissed. District Attorney Todd Williams says it had to be done.
This is not a gift. This is not a free pass. In cases where Officer Hickman is our only path to get evidence duly admitted in court, we can't do that now due to the situation at hand. It's what we're obligated to do. We don't do it lightly, though, because we have dismissed some DWIs and certain other cases that are very important to us. We're not dismissing cases where we have another means to get evidence into court.
Religious leaders in the region are calling for change in the aftermath of the body cam video's release. The Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance and the Baptist Ministerial Union condemned Hickman's behavior. They plan to gather more information about the case to shed light on an issue they say is widespread in the area.
We're trying to help people understand that this has been a systematic type process in this city, that it did not happen with just this chief, that it did not happen with just these elected officials, but it's been an ongoing problem in the city of Asheville.
Meanwhile, in the city, some residents took a backhanded swipe at the police force. At least 3 fake no jaywalking signs were seen in Asheville Monday. They warned that violators are subject to abuse by police. According to the signs, that abuse includes, quote, punches, kicks, and gunshots to the body and head. City officials say they have since taken down all the signs.
Students nationwide are demanding new laws to prevent school shootings.
And a South Carolina boy springs into action to save a life of a neighbor.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hearts for the Arts helps make arts experiences possible for everyone, whether providing tickets for less advantaged patrons, making programs accessible for guests with disabilities, or providing programming for schools through our On Stage for Youth series. Hearts for the Arts guarantees that more people can enjoy GPAC programs. For more than 40 years, Givens Performing Arts Center on the campus of the University of North Carolina at Pembroke has provided culturally rich and diverse entertainment to the university and the Southeast region, building on its mission, changing lives through education. Studies show that the arts can play a significant role in the development of children and the enrichment of the community. You can make a difference today by giving to GPAC's Hearts for the Arts Fund. Enhance the lives of others and enrich lives with art. Give online by visiting uncp.edu/give and choose Givens Performing Arts Center in the donation form. That's uncp.edu/give.
North Carolina health officials are alerting the public to a recent increase in emergency room visits by people who vape cannabidiol. It's a compound derived from marijuana. The Carolina Poison Center is investigating more than 30 reports since December of hallucinations, seizures, and loss of consciousness. The number of patients is double those who sought emergency room care last year after using the oil. The State Health Department has advised that products labeled CBD oil can contain other unknown substances. CBD oil is only legal in North Carolina for epilepsy patients.
In Colorado, where marijuana was legalized, some students will be headed to college next fall thanks to taxes collected from the industry. CNN News Source has the story.
With the help of weed, Pueblo County students can now aim towards a higher education. Pueblo County officials announced their cannabis-funded college scholarship has tripled in funding, making it possible for a record amount of Pueblo students to go to college.
If you want a college education, you either have to spend all your savings, or you have to die in debt to the institutions, and I think it should be a little easier to go to college.
Commissioner Pace spearheaded the idea of the scholarship back in 2015. He says $750,000 was raised for the fund this year. The majority of the scholarship is funded by a 3% excise tax levied by the county on the wholesale transfer of marijuana to distributors. The tax is expected to increase by 1% each year, capping off at 5%.
If we want to change the course of Pueblo, and we want to make Pueblo as economically thriving as a metropolis of Colorado Springs, then we have to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to a college education.
The Pueblo Hispanic Education Foundation administers the POD scholarship. In years past, hundreds of students have received $2,000 each.
It's important to not only help the students, but also the families who are trying to pay to give the next generation opportunity for success.
Students around the country focused on unity and remembrance during National Walkout Day to demand action to prevent school shootings. Wednesday at 10 a.m. local time, high schoolers demonstrated to demand gun control or other measures. Some school systems held alternative demonstrations to keep students in attendance and for safety reasons. At this school in Louisiana, students participated in a moment of silence, and student leaders read prayers, giving their classmates points to reflect on. Students kept the names of 17 Parkland, Florida victims in mind. Other options included a safety awareness assembly instead. At this school, classmates encouraged each other to speak up in the future if they noticed a potential threat.
In Laurinburg, students at Scotland High School did walk out, despite administrators' plans for an observance indoors.
We are the change! We are the change! We are the change! We are the change!
Principal Brian Edkins was supportive. The school had already planned to ring a bell 17 times while observing silence at 10 a.m. Some college students also demonstrated for National Walkout Day. Since college campuses have been targets also, here at UNCP, the designated time of 10 a.m. is a passing period in between classes, so there really wasn't anything to walk out on. Elsewhere, students wore orange in solidarity with the movement. Even federal lawmakers participated in the 17-minute event. Several senators and members of the House walked out of the U.S. Capitol building on Wednesday morning. A 9-year-old boy in South Carolina sprang into action Saturday, using a car jack to lift a fallen vehicle off his neighbor. Alan Clemens was working on his Mustang when it dropped off the supports, leaving him trapped and yelling for help. His neighbor Malachi heard him and thought quickly enough to lift the car before running for help. CNN News Source has more.
He's my guardian angel.
Despite being cooped up in a hospital bed, Alan Clemens says he's blessed to even be alive. On Saturday, he was home working on his car when it slipped off the blocks and Jack, holding it up, crushing him.
After it fell on me, I kept hollering and couldn't get nobody there.
He lay trapped under the car for an hour and a half before giving it one more shot.
I asked God to help me, give me one more holler, to send an angel by my way. And I hollered the last time, and then I give up.
That's when he says his guardian angel appeared. 9-year-old Malachi had been playing in the yard behind Alan's and heard his cry for help.
He was saying help. I think he was saying that he was stuck up under something, but I didn't know what he was talking about.
That's when Alan says Malachi jumped into action, using a nearby jack to get the car off of him.
And he pushed it up under the car and tightened it back up, and I don't know how he did it, but a little fella that wasn't robbed about 2 feet long, that jack, and he jacked that car completely up off me.
Malachi says he then ran home to get help.
When the tow truck came, they got another jack and pulled him out.
Clemens was then airlifted to Columbia, where he's recovering from 6 broken ribs and a fractured pelvis. Even so, Alan says he's thankful little Malachi heard his calls.
I don't think I'd have made it another 30 minutes.
And Malachi has a special message for Alan.
Mr. Allen, I hope you feel better.
Once strangers, they now say they share an incredible bond.
College basketball captures the nation's attention.
And the Braves face tough competition in postseason play.
Sports are up next with Dolphus Pearson III.
Since our last show, a lot has happened with our men's basketball team. They won the Peach Belt Conference tournament against Clayton State with a score of 70-60. And after winning the conference title, the men's continued their season with an NCAA tournament bid and played Francis Marion in the first round. By now, you've probably seen that crazy buzzer-beating shot by freshman David Strother that led to the 75-72 victory. Back home now, Struthers had time to reflect on the season.
I feel like we made history. I feel like it was a great season. It was just a lot of ups and downs and a lot of learning experiences. It's going to help us out next year.
The Braves didn't make it past the second round after their loss to 7th-ranked Queens University. But obviously, the team has a lot to be proud of. The seniors finished with the most wins and best win percentage of any senior class in school history. And this season also matched the Braves' highest number of victories with 27. Head coach Ben Miller says the team was top-notch and not to be underestimated.
We were good enough this year to be in the mix to try to compete to win a region. We won the first round and played a very good Queens team, ranked 7th in the country the second round. I think our defensive improvement was probably the biggest thing from the year before that allowed our team to accomplish a lot of things.
With Division I basketball's March Madness heating up, we thought it was time to find out Brave Nation's predictions for who's going to take it all.
I think I'm going with Duke just because they're from North Carolina. You feel me? They pretty prominent.
Chapel Hill, definitely.
All right.
UNC Chapel Hill. Carolina, of course.
Tar Heels.
Honestly, I'm going to have to go with UNC Chapel Hill. That's always with my team. Carolina blue is my favorite color. That's how I'm going to go.
We wondered if anybody was following the women's team in their tournament, and it doesn't sound like it.
Carolina.
Tar Heels.
Chapel Hill. I've always grew up rooting for Chapel Hill.
Mississippi State.
UConn. They win a lot. I don't really watch the females basketball, but y'all go with UConn.
For the females, I'm going to have to go with UConn just because they always undefeated every year, so I'm going to go with them. It's a good pick.
Actually, the UConn Huskies are favored again this year in another undefeated season. But they could face last year's champs, South Carolina, in the Elite Eight stage, and Notre Dame could be waiting for them in the Final Four. So we'll just have to see. The Braves baseball team had its ups and downs against number 22-ranked Wingate University Tuesday night. Pembroke built up a 6-0 lead as they dominated the first 4 innings. But the Bulldogs showed some fight in the top of the 6th. They tied up the game at 6-6 after a 3-run homer to left field. Pembroke responded with the 3 unanswered runs off of an RBI single by Roberto Rivera in the bottom of the 6th. And a 2-run homer in the 7th by Ethan Bauckham. The Braves clinched the game with the final score of 9-6. Bauckham now leads the team with 5 home runs on the season. The softball team had a roller coaster ride over spring break. Their first series ended in triumph. The Braves beat Elizabeth City State 18-2 in the first game and 24-4 in the second game to get their win streak up to 9 games. A week later, the Braves hosted Georgia College to begin conference play, and they lost both games. The first game wrapped up 6-9, and the second game was 4-6. The team will play again later this week against Emmanuel College at home. 4 Braves wrestlers headed off to nationals for spring break. Rodney Shepard, Nick Daggett, Tyler McCosey, and Eric Milks as the team finished 15th at the championships. This is the 12th straight season the Braves finished among the nation's top 25 teams. Rodney Shepard had a second-period pin that helped him grab 5th place individually. Nick Daggett and Eric Milks joined a parade of All-Americans and both walked away with 8th place finishes. Coach Johnson said on the Black and Gold Report this week, it was a great way for them to spend their spring break.
It was a good opportunity for those guys to show the rest of the nation what they're capable of, and they all went out there and did a good job, competing and leaving it all out there in Iowa. So I'm really proud of those guys and how they performed and just really how they represented Brave Nation.
Braves track and field held their home opener against Mount Olive just before the break. The women's and men's team combined for 20 wins on the day. The women's team picked up 12 event titles, including a dominating victory in the 4x4 meter relay. The men's team brought in 8 event titles, which include a pair of wins by Jathan DeBerry. The Braves are back in action this weekend when they host the 2-day Braves Classic here at home. The golf team traveled to Orlando, Florida over spring break to play in the Peggy Kirk Bell Invitational. The Braves finished tied for 7th out of 17 teams. They continue to move up in the national rankings. The Braves beat out multiple teams ranked ahead of them, such as Limestone College, Florida Tech, and West Florida. Madison Corley logged another top 20 finish, with a score of 69, 75, and 77. The team continues their spring season when they host the Sunoco Campbell Oil Classic at River Landing Country Club in Wallace, North Carolina. That's it for me. Don't forget to follow my coverage of college football recruiting on Twitter at Dolph_WNCP. Back to the studio.
Thanks, DP. And for more about UNC sports, you can always check out the Campus Rec page at UNCP_Campus Recreation on Twitter.
And you can follow the Broadcast Education Association on Instagram at UNCP_BEASC. All right, we're out of time. We'll be back next week.